Hello, welcome to the Purpose and Progress podcast show. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Price, where we share inspirational stories, motivational stories about leader industries who are doing so many fabulous things. And today we have a guest who's no different, doing so many fabulous things and bringing inspiration and motivation to so many. She is an award-winning actress, writer, producer, director of 520 Film. She's definitely a lot of accolades, and she is MariaCrystal Melo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited and honored to be here. So this is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having, being willing to be a guest on the show. I know we touched base here and there before the show and talked about a lot of different things and stuff, even before the show. And, talking about that story of inspiration, motivation, people making progress and toward their goals and aspiration of things. And we were just talking about that before the show about, how people always see the finished product, but they don't really get to understand the process of what happened to get there, to get where you're at. And to get all the accolades and stuff. So I think that's something we could start off with. Where do you feel kind of your journey started and kind of what influenced that you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it goes way back. I started out very young as an actor. Actually, I just started out as an actor when I was probably in high school. I wanted to do theater, and I remember wanting to do acting even earlier on than that. But my parents were like, you should wait until you're older. They didn't want me to do acting too early as a kid, so they just wanted me to go through school and then as soon as I went into high school, I went and I did theater. Like I was in every production and I wanted to do acting so badly. And then I remember after when I graduated high school, I wanted to pursue it very seriously. And at the age of like 19, that's when I really went into it like seriously and I started auditioning for like small projects, student films, like anything that I could do to try and build up my portfolio as a beginning actor. But I think my career didn't really progress, I think, up until maybe just after the pandemic, because I kind of went through an interesting shift where I had representation, I had an agent and a manager, but I felt like it wasn't really the direction that I wanted. I felt like I had more stories to tell. There were roles that I wanted to play that where I didn't really see that were out there, and other themes and topics that I felt really passionate about. So I started writing and producing not just to create my own work, but actually to create a versatility of work for myself as a performer, because I felt like there was so much more that I could show rather than just doing, one-liners, or not that there's nothing wrong with that, but I felt like there just wasn't enough versatility in terms of what I can express. And now that I've done already a couple of written and co-produced and directed a couple of short films already under my belt, I feel like now it's just been branching off to working with other creators and other directors. So I think it's just a matter of having that passion and that drive and knowing where I want to be and having that direction as an artist and where I want to go in terms of what kind of roles that I want to do and what kind of stories I want to tell.
That's so fabulous right there, and people sometimes don't understand that. Like I remember when I was getting my associate's degree, and I had to do undergrad, like just pick some classes, and one of the classes was actually an acting class. We did a little Broadway play and everything, and I was in there, and I was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe how people think it's easy, but it is not hard. It's hard, very hard when you're trying to remember all the lines and all this stuff, and you're going through like I was like, oh man, this is a lot. People don't understand, but that small experience I had when I was at junior college and stuff like that, I had selected that class at theater drama class I had over there, and doing that kind of opened my eyes. So yeah, this is not easy. Like it's you were doing a whole production and like you're maybe a lead character and all that stuff, and you have to remember all the lines and all the cues of when to speak, and it's a lot to it. So people, I don't think don't really they see the finished product, of course, but they don't appreciate all the work that goes behind a lot of the stuff that goes on with that. So, thank you for sharing that. What do you feel were some of the obstacles that you faced, or may have challenges that you faced as you were kind of getting into the industry and finding your niche and kind of, working your way through the process to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, there was quite a lot. I mean, it stems from, I guess, what you call branding nowadays, the personal brand, which back then wasn't even like when I first started, it wasn't even like a term. And even to logistics now and being a producer, there were so many obstacles. And one of them, I think, 'cause I started out as an actor first before anything else, was trying to find where I fit in because and a lot of actors struggle with it because when you go into the commercial side of casting, and that's when you deal with all the bigger productions and you're dealing with casting directors and the networks, they have a specific type that they want. And some and that type can be very it can seem like you're put in a box sometimes. And I'm not that kind of artist. Like as a performer, I've always been very I wouldn't say experimental, but I do like versatility and I do tend to get casted for different looks, especially. So there was always that kind of conversation of like, okay, well, what's your ethnicity? Like, where do you fit? Or like, do you even fit in at all? What do you come across as? So I kind of dealt with that as well, growing up. And from my late teens when I first started up until like I didn't really feel it until probably like 5 years ago when I was actively auditioning for real networks.
Yeah.
And then that's when I noticed, like, you know what, there's definitely a struggle with finding out where do I actually fit in because I noticed that I would get roles for specific types, and I'm just like, I'm noticing a pattern here, and that's like, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind playing that once in a while if I have to just get my foot in the door or to just gain the experience. But there's more I know that I can do. So that was one issue or one obstacle I would say. And then yeah, and then it came coming down to producing and then writing my own productions. There was always budgetary issues, there's always location issues, there's always like figuring out, okay, well, how can I if I ever want to get investors, like what's that process like? And then understanding the business side of things, understanding distribution eventually and learning about that on the surface. So there's so many things that I'm still learning even now. And but from my experience, I've learned a lot. And after understanding how the industry is constantly changing, now it's more about just publishing your work online and trying to build up your audience as much as you can. And that does take time, obviously, because nobody goes viral overnight. But I'm doing it gradually and slowly. The slow burn is kind of happening where people are starting to notice that, you know, my work and the people that I work with and you know, word gets around. So I'm very honored and very proud that I've come this far and just keep going. That's it.
It's interesting because I mean you've gone through this amazing journey to get where you're at, and like myself, I'm like just getting into like cartoon animated stuff for my books and stuff like that, and I mean, I've really been just learning on the fly how to really navigate a lot of that. And you know, it's just such a pop. People really don't know how much goes behind the scene. I mean, even when you talk about the casting roles and stuff like that, and people asking about, hey, you know, do you fit and how do you fit and what are, you know, all these questions about everything. They're so particular about everything that it makes it seem like it's definitely tedious, especially, you know, it's got to be a lot of pressure when you're trying to navigate a lot of that and you're seeing all these things happen and you know going in the direction of trying where you're trying to go to. You probably see a lot of the other actors struggle too in the same way. You know, because the industry is big. The industry is big, and there's a plethora of avenues and you know corridors and paths that you know we all navigate toward getting to where we want to get to and stuff like that. So I mean I mean thank you for sharing that because people don't really know. They see the finished product always say, but they don't know about the journey, the purpose, the progress that goes behind everything. You know, so I think that's amazing right there, Maria Crystal. I would like to know in terms of like achievements, your personal achievements and stuff, what do you feel has been probably some of your feeling like you some of your you know premier achievements in terms of your journey along your purpose and your progress and everything that you've done so far?
Yeah, so there was a first, well, there's quite a few. I'm just trying to remember, but we go way back. I think the first short film that I've ever wrote and produced was called The Healer.
Okay.
And that one took me by surprise because I started out from nothing. Like there was no budget in that. Like literally I did it just to try and create something and it was just after the pandemic. So I was submitting it to small little film festivals. And then it got noticed by a film festival called the Liftoff Global Network. And I submitted it under a category under the first time filmmaker session, which I was because I was a first time filmmaker. And there were these two individuals that ran a YouTube channel for this particular festival. And then they reached out to me and they're like, hey, like we really loved the film and we'd love to interview you on a YouTube live stream for our festival. And we want to showcase the film and ask you about how you made it. So that was a really cool experience, and I consider that as achievement because it was my first time, and you never think that your first project would be noticed by someone based in the UK, and they saw and they just felt connected to it. And so then after that, I did another short film called Homebound, which touched on the subject of homelessness. And that was very, very cool too because like we it got like some screenings in Toronto where I'm based, and there were people that came up to us and wanted to screen it in small theaters and venues, and that was really exciting. And we did it with my director, and it was like a finalist at the Athens International Film Festival in Greece. So it won some like pretty cool accolades, and it got some recognition. And then it got picked up by a small streaming platform called, I think it was a UMDB or yeah, some streaming platform that just launched about like a few years ago. Fall, I did a small little short film called Blood Money,
Hmm.
and that got actually screened in a real actual like movie theater on the silver screen and got picked up by a festival and I had like a little premiere. And it was like the first time one of my like films that I ever directed, which I acted in, wrote, produced, and directed it and acted in,
Yeah.
and it got screened in like an actual Cineplex theater,
Hmm.
which was really cool.
Yeah.
And now there was my newest film, our newest film called Angel, which is directed by Lefty Kutinas, written, co-produced by yours truly, and I'm actually the main actor in the film as well. It just got accepted to a really great film festival called the Toronto Nollywood International Film Festival,
Hmm.
and it's being nominated under three categories for Best Director, Best Experimental Short Film, and Best Actress. So I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very excited about all those achievements. Like the slow burning moments are just great. So it's coming together. I'm very happy.
Wow, that is incredible right there. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm sure when you were getting the news and sometimes you don't know what's going to happen with something, and then all of a sudden you get the news and you're overly excited. You're like, oh my goodness, this is actually happening,
Yeah.
and then you just have a level of excitement because you put all this work in and to make things happen, and all of a sudden you're seeing the fruits of your labor actually come to fruition in that way. And I think that is fabulous when you're able to put in that work and everything, and then actually see the progress being made, and it's so fulfilling. I mean, in so many levels, and it boosts self-esteem, self-confidence, all those things that are part of that healing journey and purpose and progress that we talk about in people's lives and stuff. Even here on the platform, we're talking about motivating people and stuff. And your story is definitely a motivational story that definitely is inspirational in a lot of ways. And I'm just congratulate you on all the success that you're going through, and continue the success that you will build upon and stuff like that. Even with, people see the glitz and the glamour, but they don't know all the progress of how to get there and stuff. So, thank you for sharing all of this wonderful, inspirational message with our audience here and stuff. So, if you were to say, like for aspiring actors and producers and people in the industry that were trying to maybe get in the door and try to get a hold of themselves and probably have an opportunity, what advice would you give to inspiring actors and producers and people who are maybe wanting to get into the industry in our audience? Just what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I think I would never would want to place my own opinions because it's every person's path is so different. Like
Yeah,
my path is so different from everybody else's, and I can only say that what may work for someone else may not work for you.
yeah,
I mean, I do have colleagues of mine who are successful actors, and they have, they've done it the traditional way. They've done the union. If they have the the manager and the agent, and they've booked through, through their agents, and they're booking, and they're doing great. And then, and then there are actors like myself where that did not work out the best way in that direction, but yet they write and they produce a script.
Yeah.
They write something, they act in it, and then it gets noticed. And then before you know it, other directors want to work with them, and then they just kind of branch out.
Mhm.
So I think what I can say is that don't try to follow what other people are doing
Yeah.
because there's kind of like this thing that I never used to like. When I was starting out as an actor, people would be like, okay, so what kind of career do you want? Like, who's it that you compare yourself to? Or like,
Mhm.
who do you aspire to be? And I think there's nothing wrong in looking up to, like a fellow actor or
Yeah.
like an artist that you admire their work, but
Mhm.
they're not me and I'm not them.
Yeah.
So, you have to really find your own uniqueness and your own path because what may work for someone else may not work for you.
Mhm.
And the only difference is like the one thing that I can say is that we have a lot more resources now. So there's like this whole thing now with YouTube creators being recognized online, which is phenomenal. But that may not work out for you that way, right? It might work out in another way. So it just means that we have more resources to be seen and to show our work, which is fantastic. Whether that's YouTube, whether that's TikTok or Instagram, wherever the case may be, or even if you do it through a traditional festival route, which that can happen as well. I know some people they've done very well in that traditional way.
Mhm.
It all depends. I would just say that it's very hard not to compare yourself. That's another thing that tends to happen in acting is when
Mhm.
you're just an actor, you always compare yourself like, oh, that person got the job and I didn't get it,
Yeah.
and do they look like me? Do they sound like me? Do they take my aesthetic? That kind of whole branding thing.
Mhm.
So it's at the end of the day, the great thing about 2026 is that we have so many resources to be seen.
Mhm.
And you never know where it might hit. It could be on TikTok, it could be on YouTube, it could be anywhere really. And the great thing is like there's so many festival venues too, which may or may not work out, but you do it anyway because that's just a way to get your work out there for people
Yeah.
to see you in any capacity, which I think is great.
Mhm.
And it just embrace your uniqueness and don't try to follow what other people are doing. Do what makes you happy
Mhm.
and what actually works out for you. And if you see the results and it's working, then stick to it.
That's so fabulous right there. I mean, and sometimes people, they are uncomfortable getting outside of the box, or
Hmm.
they get comfortable in a certain place, and then they are almost afraid to go outside the box of their comfort level and stuff like that. And when you have those kind of situations, I mean, sometimes that could bring forth a lot of stagnation, where like you're not really believing in your abilities and your purpose being to move through the thing, do the things you want to do. Because I mean, everything's going to be work, but it's a matter of are you going to have the confidence? Are you going to be okay with going outside the box of what maybe you're comfortable with to bring forth the success or meet those goals or aspirations that you're trying to reach, just like you kind of mentioned there. But I mean, all this stuff is so good when you put it all together, and have things happen in a way and gravitate toward having everything work in the way it does, especially in your case, Maria Crystal. Like you've definitely put in the work, and I mean, and you've been putting yourself out there even with the festivals and stuff. So I mean, you've diligently been putting in the work to do the things you need to do to put yourself in a position where you've seen success and things like that. And I'm definitely waiting to see any of your upcoming projects. I have been keeping up with you, and I love all the work that you're doing. I'm definitely a fan of all the work that you're doing now. And just continue on. And I always say I always incorporate prayer in everything I do. So as long as you're keeping a positive mindset and you're looking and inspiring, and not being afraid to reach back and help somebody else who may be on their path of trying to inspire in that way, it's always a good thing. That's where a lot of times you get your blessings and stuff too, through helping others. So you're doing a fabulous job there. How would our audience be able to connect with you and your work and things like that? If let the audience know how they can connect with you.
Yes, they can follow me on Instagram. I'm very much more active on there. It's MariaCrystal Melo, all one name. So you can find me there. And I do have a YouTube channel that I'm building up as well. And I post my blogs and just kind of like my experiences working as an actor and a filmmaker as well. And I will be posting some of my few projects on there as well soon, eventually. And just search up my name on YouTube, MariaCrystal Melo, like and subscribe, and follow my journey. And I will be posting my videos there.
Thank you so much. This has been such a fabulous conversation. I was saying before we started, I said, we're going to have fun with it. We're going to do our thing. We're going to learn more about you, Maria Crystal, the journey, the behind the scenes of the success. And it's been such a blessing and an honor to have you on the show. And I'm hoping, I know our audience definitely pull some nuggets and some gems out of there that's inspirational, motivational for them. And that's what this show is about, purpose and progress, about growing and nurturing your gifts and your abilities to be able to do things and make progress in a positive way. So thank you, Maria Crystal, for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. It was wonderful meeting you and much success and God bless. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. This was a wonderful, wonderful interview. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, to our audience, this is a Purpose and Progress podcast show. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Price. And once again, we are working with making purpose, making progress. Doing the things we need to do to uplift others, inspire others in the best way we can. So, until next time, everyone, stay blessed.